Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr, and despite the fact that I've cosplayed a good 7 or 8 different characters in my lifetime, only one of them has ever been a Final Fantasy character. Welcome to today's Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and today we're going to be looking at the new Heretic banner that is going to bring along new EX pluses, but no LDs at all, which is interesting for this period of time. We're going to be looking at Vivi's EX Plus and Leon's EX Plus, whilst also taking a look at the event itself. So if that's something you guys are interested in, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Don't forget to check out all of my social media links down below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Twitch this week I will be doing, obviously, the Heretic missions as they come out, and I'll be streaming some more FF14 over the course of the weekend as well. But don't forget that next week I will not be here for streaming until later on in the week, so the weekend, because I will not be here, which means I'll be having to refrain from pulling on Noctis for a little while. On Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons at random to give thanks to each and every one of you that supports the channel further, and today that person is going to be Ultra Flash Flare, who is the most recent addition to my Patreon, so thank you very, very much for your support. It means the absolute world to me. Don't forget to check out all of the websites associated with Opera Omnia that you can see all around me and linked in the description box below, and of course don't forget to check out all of the other content creators out there besides myself. So first things first, we're going to start up with Vivi, but before we talk about Vivi, I did quickly want to mention Arciela being on this banner. Arciela is still a really powerful character for a large majority of Chaos fights, so if you don't have Arciela, then this banner at least has some merit to it. If you do already have Arciela, then this banner loses a lot of value for you. Now, going into Vivi, Vivi is a very, very poor, unfortunate soul when it comes to Dissidia or Opera Omnia. He's never really been at the top of his game, or at the top of anybody's game, unfortunately, which is depressing as hell, because Vivi's Vivi. He's the character that's really loved by so many people, myself included, and he just never quite performs up to scratch. He gets a lot out of a rework. It does help him quite a lot, like Fire, he'll get more use out of, and it hits more, like, so his Fire Plus will hit for 4 hits instead of 3, and he does more damage, basically. And then Focus will trigger a Fire attack, so a 4-hit Fire Brave HP attack after you use it. His Max Bravery and attack up durations last longer than they did with his last rework, and he just generally does more damage. But the thing with Vivi that bothers me is that Vivi's main thing about him is that the Max Brave Up boost he gets is massive. So his Max Bravery is up there with the highest in the entire game. And his skills, his best skill is a single target 4-hit Fire Brave HP attack, which is not really good enough at this point in time. He does get a much better HP attack out of his EX, as we'll look at in a moment, which does help, but both of his skills do basically the same thing. Fire is it's just a basic spell, basic damage dealing spell, which we've seen so many of that do much better than this at this point in time. And for Vivi to be released with his EX Plus so late, you would hope that his skills would get a little bit more than that. His EX is initially a slow recast rate, which is not fantastic, but this does improve greatly with his EX Plus. But it's a group Brave HP attack, so it's AoE, which does help because his other skills are single target. He's got high Brave Overflow. Considering how high his Max Bravery is, then he is going to be able to cap out with a decent support character alongside him. And then his EX Realisation will give him access to his much better versions of it. He's going to get a much higher Brave hit count, because originally it's a 3-hit Brave HP attack, which is not good enough. It'll increase to 6 with just a book, and it'll also inflict Fire Resist Down or Fire Imperil on the targets for 8 turns. This is good. However, Meteor is not Fire Elemental, so the only way that his EX is actually going to take advantage of this is if you use his C65 to enchant himself with Fire, which again is so irritating, because it's something that many characters that we've seen before don't have to worry about with this kind of thing. Your Fujins, your Raijids, Rydia even, they all benefit from their own Imperil with everything that they do, but Vivi for some strange reason has to jump through hoops in order to be able to capitalise on his Fire Imperil in the best way possible. He gets an HP++, which is better, like it's a 2-hit Brave HP attack, which is better than the 1 HP Brave HP attack he had before, and it extends all the durations of his buffs for an extra turn, so it means that you're less likely to have to use his skills. And The recast rate increase from a single ingot does make a difference to Vivi, because he obviously goes up once already with just Power Stones on his EX, and then it goes up again, and then with 2 out of 3 it also raises his EX gauge to max at the beginning, so you're having to go off of the faster recast rate rather than the initial cast rate, which does help him quite a lot. Meteor then becomes a 6-hit AoE Brave HP attacking twice, which is 12 hits on Brave HP, which is great. 6 hits AoE should actually help him cap out on his bravery, which does help him quite a lot. So he's going to deal a large amount of damage with his EX. He also has a brave an HP attack called Double Fire that comes off of the buff he gets from using Meteor. He actually already has this, and if you've used Ico before, you'll have a similar sort of interaction with that, in that but when you have the buff for it, he has a brave regen, but you can spend that buff to use Double Fire, which is a double attacking Brave HP attack that's also AoE that will refund bravery after the first attack and also take advantage of the fire impel that he's just loaded up. Well, he now gets that boosted up as well, so he gains more bravery before the second attack. He's got more brave overflow and stuff, and given how massive his max bravery is, he will be able to take advantage of it, at least with the first brave HP attack, so you'll be able to refund more once you hit with that, and then it will be able to do more damage. Basically, you can make it with Vivi so that you have a good rotation with him where you go EX, then skill, then HP plus, then EX again. However, in order to do that, you have to remove practically every speed passive he has off of his kit. So not only do you have to jump through hoops in order to get to capitalize on his fire enchant and fire in peril to use his EX efficiently, you also have to jump through hoops in order to be able to use that faster recast rate in a more efficient fashion as well. Basically, this combined with the fact that Vivi also has cursed artifacts which give him more uses of fire, give him more stat upgrades and things like that. It's a lot of effort to go through to use what is ultimately a little bit of an underwhelming damage dealer. If you have other damage dealers that have enchant and imperil, his bannermate Leon is a great example of this, then you really have no reason to use Vivi, which depresses me to no end because he's Vivi. And Vivi is adorable, he is so much loved by a huge portion of the Final Fantasy fan base that it saddens me that he's not gotten more love every single time he gets something new. He's never risen to the top at any given point within Opera Omnia's lifespan. I can only hope that he gets better with an LD that comes out later down the line. Now Leon gets a much better repertoire with his new rework and his new EX+. Basically, the rework actually doesn't add all that much to him because it didn't really need to. Dark Slash gets an extra use, and it also lessens the need to have 80% max HP and down to 50% for you to get Dark Slash Plus, which allows you to gain more bravery. It looks like you've got a better brave overflow, things like that. It just makes it so that it's easier to use Dark Slash, which is a good attack because it'll also just get his Dark Knight stacks going, his attacking stats will go up nicely, and it just basically makes him hit harder, which is all you really want from it. Dark Bind also gets an extra use on it, and it also has a stronger Brave Overflow on the Plus version of itself, which is fantastic considering that it's a Brave HP with AoE capabilities that also heals. It heals Leon, and if it heals over Leon's HP limit, it will also heal his party members. So he's got a nice little thing going where he can actually heal the party, and he leans into his ability to support the party quite nicely with his EX+. Now, the main reason that people pulled for Leon's EX the first time around, and I actually own Leon's EX because I wanted it from the first time around, is because he has a really unique thing where he inflicts a new debuff, or a new buff, called Black Knight's Pride, where the party will absorb bravery damage, and he also makes it so that the enemies deal dark damage with any non-elemental attacks they have. So this actually creates a situation where against certain bosses, you're literally just absorbing every attack that they do, and it really does make a lot of fights really easy. However, Leon's damage was a little bit underwhelming at the time because this was the dawn of when EX Plus started to come out. He was great during the early portion of his timeline, but nowadays his damage is a lot less than it could be. Now, his EX Plus actually fixes this quite a lot. Darkstream is 100% AoE damage, which is really nice, and it does make a huge difference to the amount of damage he can deal, because 100% AoE damage dealing EXs always make a huge difference. But with a book, It also makes it so that he's now imperiling everything when he uses Darkstream Plus, so that he's now able to take advantage of the fact that his entire kit is dark, unlike Vivi, and he's able to deal that much more damage that much more efficiently. He also is going to get extra effects from the Black Knight's Pride, so that he's able to get more attack, and the party's Brave overflow limit actually increases as well. And that 1 out of 3 buff is worth looking at on its own, because it raises not only his max bravery and attack by 40%, but everybody's. And this makes a really strong case to use Leon with just an EX. So if you already have his kit already, I think he's definitely worth putting a book and some ingots into, purely on the back of what he gets out of the, like what his party gets out of this. So you've got the Brave absorbed from dark attacks, you've now got extra overflow, you've now got extra max brave and attack stats, and now Leon's dealing, it's certainly respectable damage, if not high damage, considering he just has an EX. And then with 2 out of 3, he gets his EX maxed out. And he already has a normal recast rate. His EX actually recasts really quite quickly comparatively to others. So he can do these 100% AoE HP damage EX attacks alongside the Imperil, alongside the Black Knight's Pride buff, so that you're getting these Brave absorbs all the time as well. And he also starts with his 3 limit levels of Dark Knight, so he's not having to use the non-plus versions of his abilities to get started, which makes a big difference. And then finally, he gets a higher hit count, massive overflow, massive Brave overflow on top of everything he's already got. And as long as he gets Dark Knights, he gets Darkstream Plus straight away, as long as his HP is above 50% rather than 80%. So it lowers the amount that he needs in order to be able to use Darkstream Plus. Now, this doesn't usually matter all that much, because his HP, he's so good at restoring his own health because of Dark Bind that you often find that he doesn't need it. But it does help a lot, and 8 hit Brave HP over sort of 100% HP across all targets. This will hit much harder than it did before, and honestly, I think Leon is a great character just to have in your pocket, because there are certain fights where he just renders them completely redundant. And all of these buffs that he gets just kind of bring him back into being playable, as he wasn't before because his damage was too low, but increasing the party's stats and increasing everything else as well while still having the Brave Absorb does make him at least worth looking at. When it comes to artifacts, Leon is actually very simple. He has a decent C50 that increases all of his stats while he's got his Dark Knight buff active, which if you've got his kit he will have at all times, and then he wants attack so that he's hitting for the maximum. Vivi, however, is a little more complicated because he has cursed artifacts. Now, he obviously wants attack because he wants to be able to hit as hard as he can to take advantage of the big max bravery stat that he's got. Charged fire is not as useful because you've now got the ability to use double fire with Meteor. He's not quite so reliant on that. However, buff attack speed is really useful for him because it raises attack and his speed with active buffs. Again, he's always going to have buffs, but his speed basically makes it harder for him to use a good rotation of EX, skill, HP plus double fire, and then EX again, so you've got a decent rotation. You can't increase his speed too much, otherwise it's going to make it so that the recast rate on his EX doesn't quite fill up enough for him to have that rotation. So while I do think it is still the recommended artifact to go for, and Cursed Artifacts being another hoop that Vivi has to jump through in order to at least be relevant to the current sort of situation of the game, it does make things harder for him. So let's take a quick look at the event itself to see what we can expect from the Chaos Challenge and the Chaos event itself, and also what characters I can recommend for this particular challenge. Now, this actual event is much easier than the last few that we've had, and having watched many clears of this particular event, there's a wide array of characters that you can bring along to this. Although be careful not to bring any ranged based characters because there is range resist across each wave of this fight. So you're first of all going to be facing against the machines that run amok when one of them dies, so you have to be very careful not to kill one at a time. You can't rush one of them down, you need to kill them simultaneously. Then you're going to be fighting up against Frost Giants, who get faster and stronger if they inflict break to you, and this is something that's a trend across this particular fight, is that if the enemies do break you, they'll either get faster or stronger, or they'll do something nasty after it, and they do inflict really high bravery damage. And then wave 3, you're going to be fighting against the Flawless, which is like the Holy Bahamut, which can self-cleanse debuffs, can dispel your generic buffs, and can also instantly recover from break. And he also recovers all of his health after you've taken his HP down the first time, similar to how Phoenix works. So be cautious how you're going to attack the Flawless when he's very low on his health the first time. Perhaps save your summon for when you're just about to take that first HP bar out. In terms of characters you can bring along, bringing along anyone that can resist bravery damage or increase your defenses or anything like that is going to be very helpful to you here. So characters like Gabranth, Desh, Paladin Cecil or Beatrix will all work very well here because they make it so that it's harder for you to get broken and you can attack more freely. Bringing along Galoof actually works very well here because a large portion of the attacks that all of the enemies use are physical, so you're able to kind of circumvent any of that. There are some magic attacks, but Galoof can still dodge magic attacks, and as long as you're careful which ones that are coming up, then you'll be able to use him to your advantage in that way. Saz and Alize are just high-speed characters that work together on practically anything at the moment, so honestly taking these two will serve you well in this particular fight as well. And then Quistis, being a battery-based character that can delay, that can make their speed go down, that can make everything go down. All of these characters will work well. There's plenty of other characters that you can use as well. I've seen people use Lightning, I've seen people use a bit of Italian, I've seen people use Vayne, and Vayne's not been used in a while. Basically, this challenge should be a little bit easier than most. And one of the things that's nice about the Chaos Challenge as well, in terms of the characters everybody has, is that one of the characters on it is a character that 90% of people who've played for a little while will already have in Arciela. Arciela, like I said earlier, is a great character and has been for quite some time and will be for quite a while more. So while I don't think this is a great banner to be pulling on for anybody, if you don't have Arciela, there is some value to be had here. So now we come to the portion of the video where we discuss whether we think it's worth pulling on this banner or not. Honestly, under most circumstances, I actually don't think that this banner is worth pulling on pretty much at all, particularly considering the kinds of banners we have coming up next week. If you don't have Arciela or Leon and you don't want to spend EX tokens on them, and you've got a massive amount of resources that you're saving for your Noctises, your Barsh, your Arden, your Lightning, your Kuja, all sorts of things that are coming up in the future, then maybe you could throw a few tickets at it and try and get something. Arciela is still great for the time being. Leon actually does get quite a nice upgrade for considering that he's just an EX character. Vivi is still, he's usable, and I don't want to say that he's bad because then people will come for me with pitchforks, but he's not up there with the rest. There is a lot of holes in Vivi's kit that would make him, that if they filled those gaps, they would make him really playable. He doesn't bring anything really to the party except fire resist that he benefits from most of the time, but not all of the time, and he's just a damage dealer. And I know I say that about a lot of characters, but there are a lot of just a damage dealers that I think do a much better job than Vivi. If you want to use EX tokens and you want to prove Vivi's worth, then that's fine. If you're a massive fan of Vivi, you can get him to work. You can take away all of his speed passives, go grab his accursed artifacts, and you can make him work. But I just don't feel that he's worth the amount of effort it takes to make him as good as some characters that don't take nearly as much. But this banner is honestly probably the easiest skip we've had in quite a long time, and probably the easiest skip we're going to have for a long time to come. So honestly, I would take this moment as a breather and try to just recover some resources ready for the next few banners. If you've got Leon already, then yeah, I'd say give him a book, give him some ingots if you've got some spare. I think he might surprise you. But ultimately, I think this banner is just, given that there's no LDs on it, Varn's burst is still there, but it's not like the greatest burst in the world. This is probably the best chance you've got to try and save some resources for the future. So that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments below what your pulling plans are. Do you plan to pull for Vivi? Do you plan to pull for Leon? Or did you perhaps miss Arciela the first time round and want her now? Or are we just saving up for next week at this point? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video out to anyone who might be interested in Dissidia Opera Omnia, and of course click that bell for notifications on any future videos that I might be making about the game. That's all going to be it from me today, but thank you all very much for joining me, and I shall see you in the next video. Take care!